I now recognize the Ranking Member, Mrs. Swalwell, for 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you. As part of the fiscal year 2022 NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act, Congress authorized the CyberSentry program, which deploys sensors on a voluntary basis on critical infrastructure partners in order to detect malicious activity, as I noted in my opening statement. A critical part of that program is the role that Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory plays in analyzing CyberSentry data. Dr. Gleason, what is the current status of Lawrence Livermore's partnership with CISA on CyberSentry?
We've supported CISA in various aspects of critical infrastructure security for about a decade. Currently, we have agreements that are our funding agreements are making their way through DHS processes. Unfortunately, those are still making their way through DHS processes, and our work with CISA expired last Sunday.
What does it mean that it expired? Is it turned off? Are you able to operate without authorities or funding? Like what is the posture right now for this important work?
National laboratories are not legally able to operate without being funded by a government agency, so our threat hunters stopped monitoring networks on Sunday.
Who needs to turn it back on?
We need the interagency agreement between DHS and DOE to be completed.
Okay. Would this be a sign-off from the secretaries of both Energy and Homeland Security?
Somewhere in that chain, yes. I'm not completely familiar with the funding processes that exist at those agencies right now, but yes, it needs to be signed off by both organizations.
And earlier in your testimony, you alluded to some cameras and malicious activity that you had found that had been Chinese placed. Is that the type of work that the Sentry program does?
Absolutely. We're looking for threats that haven't been seen before. We're looking for threats that exist right now in our infrastructure. One of the great things about the CyberSentry program is it takes the research and marries it with what is actually happening on the real networks. So we're not just doing science projects, we're deploying that technology out in the real world, detecting real threats.
And just so I understand, you now, with the program that has at least lapsed or hopefully temporarily lapsed, the sensors are still deployed, is that right?
That's correct. The sensors are still deployed. They're still gathering data. We just aren't analyzing the data that's coming in.
So I guess you're telling me because you don't have the funding, you're not allowed to look at the data legally. That's the problem.
That's correct.
So theoretically, we have deployed sensors on critical infrastructure, and there could be a malicious attack occurring right now that you are not legally able to see until the program is refunded.
That is correct. Lawrence Livermore analysts are not able to monitor that data right now.
What is the risk of you being blind to what these sensors are detecting?
I think everything that we've talked about in this hearing, we've seen how important critical infrastructure is to everything we do as a country. I think I'll echo a talking point I frequently hear from Dragos. One of the most important things is getting visibility into what's happening on our OT networks. We don't have enough of that, and so losing this visibility through this program is a significant loss.
A major priority of mine has been to improve operational collaboration between the federal government and the private sector. To do so, CISA must have the appropriate forums for such collaboration, including the JCDC and CPAC. Ms. Bolton, how can JCDC be strengthened so that it can better facilitate OT security collaboration, and why is it important that CPAC be restored?
Thank you for the question. I think CPAC is an organization that allows industry to talk to the government, and right now, industry is not able to convene with the liability protections that come, or the information sharing protections that come with CPAC authorities, and so that becomes a problem, and it's a national security concern when operational collaboration can't happen between those two entities. It's I believe it's very important for CPAC authorities to come back. I think as much as possible, industry is continuing to try to work through other mechanisms, but there was nothing specifically like CPAC. And we also are we're continuing to work with JCDC and other areas within CISA on OT security issues. I think what we'd like to see from JCDC, if we're talking about additional work, is more concrete OT efforts that industry can get involved with from the ground up.
Great, thank you. Yield back.
Gentleman yield.
Representative Eric Swalwell, Democrat, California, pressed Lawrence Livermore National Laboratories' Nate Gleason on the current state of the CyberSentry program, a federally authorized effort designed to monitor cyber threats on critical infrastructure. Gleason explained that while the sensors deployed under the program are still operating and gathering data, the lab is no longer allowed to analyze the information because their funding agreement with the Department of Homeland Security expired the previous Sunday. He clarified that national laboratories cannot legally function without federal funding, which forced Livermore's threat hunters to stop monitoring networks despite the continued flow of incoming data. This means potential cyberattacks could be occurring on critical systems right now, but analysts are barred from reviewing or responding to them until a new agreement is signed between the Department of Energy and DHS. Swalwell emphasized the risk of this blind spot, pointing out that the U.S. could be exposed to attacks without real-time analysis. Gleason agreed, noting that visibility into operational technology networks is already limited and that losing even the small window CyberSentry provides is a serious loss for national security. The discussion also highlighted the importance of government-industry collaboration. Witness testimony stressed that mechanisms such as the Joint Cyber Defense Collaborative, JCDC, and the Critical Infrastructure Partnership Advisory Council, CPAC, play a key role in operational cooperation. While JCDC remains active, experts argued that it needs stronger, more concrete engagement with industry on OT security. CPAC, on the other hand, has lapsed, removing liability protections and information-sharing safeguards that companies rely on to work closely with the government. Without these protections, private partners are reluctant to share sensitive information, creating yet another barrier to securing the nation's most vulnerable systems. Together, the testimony underscored a pressing issue. The tools and partnerships needed to defend U.S. critical infrastructure from cyber threats exist, but bureaucratic delays and expired agreements are leaving the country exposed at a time when real-time monitoring is most needed.